you'll always be my number one, even after we're married.
Does that mean you like me more than her? Really? I'm gonna miss seeing you as soon as we tie the knot. I overhear a conversation from the living room that I wish I hadn't. I couldn't believe the words coming from my fiancé, Milford. Hearing it with my own ears was shocking, even though I knew about it. It wasn't that I didn't believe it, but it turns out the stories from Milford's sister, Charlotte, were true. I had heard about his careless ways with women, but never imagined it would come to this right before our wedding. Charlotte and I exchange glances and quietly leave the house. Maybe it's better to have found out before the wedding. Thanks to Charlotte, a capable ally, things seemed to be moving smoothly. I thought our relationship was going well because I hadn't noticed anything. Or rather, I was pretending not to notice. So, like a puzzle missing a single piece, everything easily falls apart. Unwanted evidence of the two of them starts surfacing, one after another. I can't believe how easily I find proof of what Milford has been up to the point where I disgust myself. I'll never forgive Milford and his affair partner, Sania. With this vow in my heart, Charlotte and I start plotting to make them suffer. My name is Aretha. I'm 25 years old and work in the HR department of the administrative division at my company, known for being reserved among my colleagues. I'm not taciturn. I'm just not good at initiating conversations, nor do I prefer to be cold. Currently, Milford and I live together in our own home. Milford was the only one who actively approached me at work, where I rarely spoke. He's 2 years my senior and could be considered the ace of the sales department. He started talking to me soon after I joined the company as a new graduate, and he pursued me aggressively. Despite being in different departments, he often invited me to lunch or out for drinks. Milford is refreshingly handsome, and I heard rumors that many women from various departments were after him. So I indirectly refused unless we weren't alone. But Milford was persistent and sometimes a bit pushy about wanting to go out, just the two of us. At first, I wasn't even interested, but Milford, older yet with a puppy-like devotion, caught my interest, and I gradually became aware of him. Milford was always leading, a good talker and listener. I've seen him at work, looking serious and capable. Despite rejecting Milford's confessions several times, his relentless pursuit eventually led me to accept. And so, our relationship began. We've been living together for 3 years now, dating. Just before our 3rd anniversary, Milford proposed, and we're about to have our wedding. The family meeting dinner went smoothly, and the wedding preparations were progressing well. That was when I first met Charlotte, and being close in age, it didn't take long for us to get along. Charlotte, with her friendly nature, was great at engaging even someone like me in conversation. For the first half year, Milford joined the wedding planning and we went on dates afterwards. But recently, citing work, he's been leaving me to attend the meetings alone.
"You should do what you like, Aretha,"
he'd say, a phrase that seemed to become his catchphrase. He's been coming home later and later, so I decided to confront him about whether it was really work.
"It really is work. Sorry for making you feel insecure. It's just a busy period with a big project. I'll try to make more time from now on."
Though I wasn't convinced, he promised to make time, so I didn't press further. I only accompanied the planner for weekly meetings before parting ways there. Even though he began making time once a week, his late-night returns during the weekdays increased. He also started going on more business trips. Being in the same company, I should understand if he's busy, but looking at the sales department as a whole, there wasn't much overtime or business trips. Without close friends at work, I felt alone and unsettled. I decided to reach out to Charlotte, the only person I could talk to freely like a friend. I contacted Charlotte and we arranged to meet at my house the following weekend. During those 3 days, Milford continued to come home late, leaving us only the mornings to talk. I couldn't even tell Milford about meeting Charlotte. Lately, our conversations were just, "Good morning," and "I'm off." This is all I remember. I couldn't wait up for Milford since I had work the next day, too. And inevitably, his business trips would fall over the weekend, leaving no chance for a proper conversation. Texts would be read but not replied to, and phone calls answered only about once in 10 attempts. Even when he did answer the phone, it was quickly, "I'm with a client right now. I'm swamped at the moment," and then he'd hang up. Alone with my thoughts about Milford, Charlotte arrived at my house a bit earlier than we had planned. As we made small talk, I mentioned I had something I wanted to discuss, and Charlotte's expression turned serious. "What? Milford has?" After I told her everything, Charlotte looked shocked. But then she began looking remorseful. "Actually, Aretha, I've been debating whether to tell you. On the days Milford says he's on business trips, I thought I saw him at the shopping mall at night. I wanted to think it was just my imagination and couldn't bring myself to tell you. I'm really sorry." Hearing Charlotte's words, I could feel my heartbeat quicken. It must have been hard for her to say. When I quietly took Charlotte's hand, she began to cry and continued. "When I confronted Milford, he threatened me, saying, 'If you don't tell Aretha, she won't find out. You don't want to make her unhappy, right? And with the wedding coming up, seeing how happy you looked, I just couldn't bring myself to say it. I'm sorry. Really sorry. Charlotte, it's not your fault. It's okay. I'm sorry you had to go through this alone. Being threatened must have been hard. Thank you for telling me, even so." Charlotte began to cry as if she was letting out everything she had been holding back. I also heard that Milford had always been careless with women. Despite feeling bad for Charlotte, I couldn't fully believe that the kind Milford I knew could cheat. Deciding I needed to be sure, I told Charlotte I would hire a detective agency. "That might be best," she agreed. Charlotte wanted to hear the detective agency's findings together, so we agreed to share the information once it arrived and then parted ways. Waiting for the detective agency's results, I was restless and anxious. Then, one day after work, "Can you and Milford come to the family home this weekend? There's something about the wedding we need to discuss." I received a text from my mom. My family home is far away, so a visit would mean staying overnight. When I texted Milford about going to my family home together for the weekend, "Sorry, doesn't look like I can get away from work," he replied fairly quickly. I informed my mom it would just be me coming, and I told Milford I'd be staying overnight. However, as usual, there was no reply to that text. On the weekend, claiming he had to work, Milford left early. As I was getting ready to leave after breakfast, my mom called. "Aretha? Sorry, but Dad caught the flu. We just got back from the hospital, and since Milford said he has to work, maybe we can reschedule?" "Okay, understood. Tell Dad to rest up. Take care of yourself, Mom." After hanging up, my plans were suddenly canceled, leaving me wondering what to do next when I got a call from the detective agency. The investigation was complete, and they asked me to come to their office. I contacted Charlotte to see if she could meet right away, and since she could, we both headed to the agency together. The results of the investigation left us stunned. The other woman was a new employee named Sania, from the same department and division as me. She was notably attractive, and I remembered her name and face because she stood out. Even though I knew, accepting the reality was tough, and I fought hard to keep from crying. After thanking the agency, Charlotte and I decided to go back to my place to talk it over. When we got home, I saw Milford's shoes and an unfamiliar pair of black pumps next to them. We quietly closed the door to avoid making noise and tiptoed down the hallway leading to the living room.
You'll always be my number one, even after we're married.
Does that mean you like me more than her? Really? I'm gonna miss seeing you as soon as we tie the knot.
Sania, that ice-cold boss of yours is your fiancé, right? But you like me more, huh?
Hearing this unwanted conversation from the living room was unbelievable. I couldn't believe Milford's words. Hearing it from myself was a shock, even though I was aware. It wasn't that I didn't believe it, but it seems Charlotte's stories were true. I had heard about his careless ways with women, but never imagined it would come to this right before our wedding. Charlotte and I exchanged looks and quietly left the house. We went to a nearby cafe, and for some reason, I felt a laugh welling up. Charlotte looked at me with concern. "Charlotte, I need your help with something." "I thought so. Count on me for anything, Aretha." So we started plotting our revenge. From that day, I stopped initiating conversations with Milford. Seemingly sensing something, Milford began to approach me more. By this time, there was less than a month left until the wedding. Even as Milford started initiating conversations, my cool responses made him stop going on business trips and start coming home earlier.
Charlotte must have been late, huh? Welcome back. My boss said we could leave on time since the wedding is coming up. Finally, we can relax.
When I got home, Milford would start making excuses without being asked. I simply replied, "That's good for you." We had never fought during our relationship, but this was the first time Milford raised his voice.
What's with that attitude? It's really irritating. Did I do something to you? Why are you so cold all of a sudden? Is this some kind of revenge for coming home late before?
Not really. It's nothing like that.
It sucks to finally be able to come home early and then have to deal with this at home. I'm going out to a bar with friends tonight.
Saying that, he prepared something in his room and left, making noise with his footsteps. I figured he was probably going to meet her. Since Milford's bedroom door was left open, I decided to check inside while closing it. Noticing the closet door was also open, I saw that his suits were missing, suggesting he might not come back tonight. This meant I could proceed with the next steps of my plan. I called my parents to inform them about Milford's affair and my plans for revenge. Though shocked by the sudden news,
"Go all out if you're going to do it,"
they said. After ending a call with my parents, I noticed a text from Milford asking,
"Do you understand why I left? Reflect on your actions."
I didn't reply, but took a shower and went straight to bed. Somehow, I wasn't feeling sad or angry anymore, just looking forward to seeing if our revenge would be successful. Charlotte was probably telling my in-laws about Milford's actions by now. I had given her copies of the evidence photos from the detective agency, so they would believe her. It was uncertain if they would join our plan. Even if they tried to stop us, I was determined to proceed. The next day, Milford came home, slammed his bag on the table without a greeting, and burst out.
"Aretha, enough is enough. What's your problem? If you don't speak up, how am I supposed to know?"
"What? Welcome home."
"Are you joking? Can't you be more charming? More like her?"
Milford stopped mid-sentence, realizing what he had said. Was this an admission of guilt? As I silently stared at him, Milford awkwardly said,
"Anyway, you're pretty and competent. What you lack is charm. Forget it. I'm going to take a shower."
Milford hurried off to the shower. During this time, I went to my room and texted Charlotte about the conversation. Charlotte responded, "What is that? A confession?" Finding the situation amusing. Then, on the eve of the wedding, my parents were staying at my house, and Milford said he would stay at his parents' house, already absent from our home. So, I had my parents help me pack up. Aretha, are you really leaving this house?
Yes, I'm done. I don't need memories with Milford. My parents agreed with my decision, packed the car, and arranged for a courier to pick up the rest later. The next morning, I woke up early, perfectly applied my makeup, and was fully prepared. Milford started calling persistently. Ignoring all his calls, I saw texts from him. Where are you? What are you thinking? I ignored these as well. After that, I received a call from Charlotte, who was at the venue. Once I answered, Charlotte asked the venue staff to project her phone's screen for everyone to see. Switching to video call, I took a deep breath and began speaking to the attendees through my phone. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being here today on our behalf. However, I must inform you that I cannot marry Milford. Charlotte, Milford's sister, will explain the details. After I said this, Charlotte took the microphone and directed everyone's attention to another screen showing photos of Milford's infidelity. The room buzzed with murmurs, but Charlotte methodically explained each photo. With only Milford and Sania, who had boldly taken a seat in the venue, turning pale at their disgraceful images being displayed, Sania suddenly stood up in front of the screen. Don't look! It's a misunderstanding! Someone delete this! She yelled. Milford tried to take the microphone from Charlotte, joking that it was just a wedding prank, but no one believed him. The company's executives started to murmur, What's going on here? While friends commented, This is bad. Some even finding amusement in the situation. Then, father-in-law John, in anger, took the microphone and addressed the crowd. Ladies and gentlemen, we deeply apologize for today's inconvenience. Our son has caused you trouble. We will return your wedding gifts as you leave, but please enjoy the meal. Thank you very much for coming. We will take our leave now. With that, he grabbed Milford by the scruff and exited. Sania, being engaged to Mr. Truss, sensed trouble brewing and had already started arguing. It's not true. That photo is fake. I would never do that. Believe me. But Mr. Truss ignored her desperate pleas and walked away without looking back, leaving Sania crying and the guests disillusioned. Charlotte and I apologized to the venue staff and the attendees before ending the call. Immediately after the call, I quickly took the rest of my belongings and left the house. I had informed Charlotte that Milford's belongings were stored in a rental warehouse, assuming he would retrieve them someday. Goodbye, Milford, I said as I left our shared memories behind. After moving out, I went to his parents' house with my parents and a lawyer to discuss things with Milford. We knew he would be there because I had asked Charlotte to ensure he couldn't escape after the wedding. Upon arrival, Milford began loudly blaming me. Aretha, everything is ruined because of you. The company put me on house arrest and they said they'd decide my punishment later. What about my life now? John restrained Milford and we were led into the living room to begin our discussion. The lawyer started explaining from the beginning, and when the topic of breaking off the engagement came up, Milford seemed surprisingly shocked. What? Wait, why? We're not getting married? Hearing Milford's words, we were all taken aback. It seemed everyone was thinking, how could he still believe marriage was possible under these circumstances? Obviously, what are you talking about? Let's continue. Our demands include a $50,000 cancellation fee for the wedding, $20,000 in compensation, and an even split of the assets. If these terms are refused, we'll immediately proceed to court. Milford started to say something, but John stopped him. John spoke on Milford's behalf. Aretha, I'm sorry for the trouble my son has caused. Whatever he says will go along with your demands. We'll make sure he pays for everything. With John's sincere apology, I decided to leave without saying anything more. Thinking it was all surprisingly straightforward, I returned home.
only to find myself the center of attention at work the next day. However, no one approached me, allowing me to go about my work as usual. As I was about to leave at the end of the day, I was approached by an angry Sania at the entrance. "It's your fault. You had to meddle. I was about to marry a wealthy man and have a handsome lover living a happy life. I'll never forgive you." Just as she lunged at me, Mr. Truss arrived in time to hold her back. "This isn't Aretha's fault. I had my suspicions from the start. Your reckless spending was too much to ignore. Even without this incident, I would have called off the engagement." Sania broke down crying and was taken away by the police called by Mr. Truss for attempting to harm me, receiving a stern warning. After thanking Mr. Truss the next day and hoping for a return to normalcy, I mistakenly answered a call from Milford. "Finally got through. Aretha, can't we start over?" "What are you talking about? It's impossible." "Then, since I'm paying compensation, I can live in our home, right?" I was baffled by Milford's logic. The home we lived in was a gift from my parents for our engagement, in my name. I sold that house. "What? How could you do that on your own? Isn't the house communal property? What about the sale money? Does that reduce the compensation?" "First off, that house was bought by my parents in my name. It's not communal property. Talking to you is giving me a headache. Don't call me again. Goodbye." I hung up without letting Milford say more and immediately blocked his number, later telling Charlotte about the call and planning to meet up. Today was the day to meet Charlotte. Over tea, she updated me on Milford's situation. The total compensation and cancellation fees he owed amounted to $70,000. He had been transferred and had his salary cut by the company after the compensation claim was confirmed, but he quit in frustration after being reprimanded daily, having never worked in any capacity other than sales. Milford had planned to take refuge and live at his in-laws, but John ousted him, Charlotte explained. Concerned that Milford might default on his compensation payments, John arranged for him to work and live at a factory owned by an acquaintance. This factory, located far from the city and out of cell phone reach, would ensure Milford couldn't bother me anymore, Charlotte said with a laugh. Curious, I also inquired about Sania's whereabouts. According to Charlotte, Sania faced a $30,000 compensation claim from her former fiancé. With her looks and charm, that amount should have been manageable. However, Sania's prejudices against certain jobs left her unable to repay her debts and struggling to make ends meet. Eventually, she found temporary work but was fired due to incompetence, relying on part-time jobs to survive and becoming obsessed with nightclubs. Her debts increasing, Sania could no longer afford her nightclub expenses and was last seen being escorted away by intimidating figures, her current whereabouts unknown, Charlotte noted. When I asked how Charlotte knew so much, she revealed a surprising connection. She and Sania were classmates in middle and high school. Sania was infamous for stealing others' boyfriends, a reputation that made Charlotte wary of her from the start. This incident, it seems, settled any unresolved feelings Charlotte had towards Sania. At work, I faced no condemnation. In fact, the incident made me more approachable, leading to new friendships and lunch companions. Conversations with Mr. Truss revealed a shared compatibility, evolving into regular outings on weekends. The future of this relationship remains uncertain. Charlotte and I continue to share a close bond, akin to sisters or best friends, planning to maintain our friendship.